Foo Dog Films presents Paid to Dream with Charles Dennis. Okay, we are back, ladies and gentlemen, with Paid to Dream, and my guest today is Brent Huff, who I've known, it seems, all my life, but not really. But Brent Huff is a very, very special person to me for many reasons, as a colleague, as someone I've directed, he's directed me, and he performed my marriage ceremony 8 years ago.
That's right.
I have you to blame.
Or to thank. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be fair to say that most people today know you as Quigley Smitty in The Rookie.
Probably so, yes.
Do you get stopped by people now?
Yeah, all the time, and I love it. It's fun. They all really like the show. They like the characters. So it's been a great run. We're in our 8th season right now, and I was just going to be in the one episode in season 1, and it ends up 8 seasons later. I'm still on the show, so I'm very, very blessed.
Does anyone ever think you are a policeman?
When I'm wearing the uniform, when we're shooting like downtown or whatever, I've been stopped. I've been given the evil side eye because I'm a cop, you know. So, but just, when I'm in the police uniform and we're working downtown, it's happened.
Well, you have had an extraordinary odyssey before becoming an actor and a filmmaker. You were a male supermodel. How did that happen?
Well, I don't know if I was a supermodel, but I worked quite a bit. I went to the University of Missouri where I was a theater major. And then as soon as I actually left school before I graduated because I played sports. I got hurt in track and I said, I'm going to California. I moved out here and I got a job at the Huntley House Hotel in Santa Monica as the night auditor. I knew nothing about that. I was terrible. But during the day, I could go to...
I don't even know what a night auditor is.
I just did the books, and it's like I wasn't very good at math or calculus or any of that kind of stuff. But I got a job doing that where I could then go to auditions during the day after I got my agent or whatever. And I was doing acting auditions for commercials mostly. And then the 3rd Street Promenade, before it was what it is now is not too good. But, before its heyday, there was a 3rd Street Promenade. And I happened to run into... an agent, Nina Blanchard, and she was with Eileen Ford from the Ford Model Agency in New York. And they asked me if I was a model. And I went, no, I'm not a model. And they go, would you like to be? I go, nah, it doesn't sound like something I'd want to do. And they go, well, come into my office like the next day and bring a swimsuit. There's an audition for, swimsuit. So I go in there with all these beautiful girls in swimsuits. I'm looking around like, wow. And I end up booking the job, and I think I got like $250 for the whole day, which was more than I was making like in a week at the Huntley House Hotel.
What was the job?
I don't remember I don't remember what it was, but it's for swimsuits. I think it was Arena swimsuits. I don't know if Arena swimsuits is still around, but I think it was Arena. I ended up getting it, and I go, oh, I guess I'm a male model now because I was good. I could make money, and then I started, working, quite a bit. And at the time, to be a male model, there's a store called the May Company out here in LA, and I'd work for them all the time, and I got $60 an hour. And I'm doing the math in my head, and I go, that's $1 every minute. So when I'm modeling, I would really take my time, like changing clothes and stuff, because I was trying to get that clock going, because I was getting $1 was $1, and I was trying to get more money as I could. And then from that, Joey Hunter, who was the head of the men's department at Ford Models, asked me to move to New York. I moved to New York, and I did the modeling thing there. And then they sent me to Milan, Italy, and that's where sort of my modeling career took off, if you can call it that, because I'd work all the time with big-time designers. Giorgio Armani just passed away, and I posted this on my social media that my agent said, well, you have an audition at Giorgio Armani's today. And I go, oh, who do I see? Because you usually, see the ad, head of the ad department. And I go, no, you see Giorgio Armani. And so I go there. He didn't really speak English. but he was a nice man. I ended up getting the job, and so then I worked for Versace and Valentino and a lot of the Italian designers. So, and that's sort of how that took off. And then I ended up getting this French film and Gwendolyn, and then that's when I quit the modeling.
How did Perils of Gwendolyn happen?
I was back in L.A. and I was actually on a modeling shoot in Venice Beach, and my agent says, get over to Barbara Clayman's office, and Victoria Burrows was also a casting director there, and I was on a motorcycle then, so I go through town on a motorcycle. I pull up in a motorcycle, I go in, and I meet the director, Juice Chican, and we hit it off right away, and then the next thing I knew, they wanted to do a screen test in Paris. So they fly me to Paris along with Tawny Katane, and we both do these screen tests, and Tawny and I really hit it off. She was great. Unfortunately, she's not with us anymore, but she was hilarious and beautiful, and we really got along, and they ended up hiring both of us, and we shot for like 4.5 months. We did Paris, the south of France, Morocco, the Philippines. So it was a big budgeted French movie, and I'd already done a movie called Coach, where I played a high school basketball player, but this was my first lead to a film.
Where did you do Coach? I never knew about that.
Oh, Coach is when I first moved out here, because I played basketball in college. I was a walk-on at the University of Missouri, and didn't last very long, but I loved basketball. I played basketball in junior college as well. So they had a casting for Coach with Kathy Lee Crosby. I don't know if you remember her. So Kathy Lee Crosby was the female coach, and I go in, and I could spin a basketball on my finger. So I brought my own basketball. It's so stupid now to do this. But I walked into the audition room spinning a basketball on my finger. But it worked. I got the job, and I got the job alongside another actor, Michael Biehn, who went on to do great films, Terminator and Tombstone, and so we would have a blast. We would play basketball all day at the boys' club in Hollywood, and they pull us one actor after another to go shoot a scene, and we'd come back and play basketball all day long, and that was a lot of fun. But the basketball paid off for me, so that was my first job. But then the Perils of Gwendolyn was my first lead to a film.
And then when did you go to the Philippines and do those movies with Mary Stavin?
At the time, I get when I did Gwendolyn, it was the first time in the Philippines. Then I did a movie called 9 Deaths of the Ninja in the Philippines. You must have seen that movie, right?
Well, my first screen credit was The Thirsty Dead, shot in the Philippines.
Oh, did you work there?
1970 something. So
no, I would be at the hotel in the Philippines, and I'd run into a lot of my friends who did because these were action movies, would do action movies in the International Hotel, and we'd go, what are you working on? Oh, and what's your character? Well, I'm a Vietnam vet coming back, and they go, oh, I'm a Vietnam vet in my movie too. And I did, I think, 5 or 6 movies in the Philippines, and that's where I met Mary Stavin.
Yeah, John Derek, I think he was a pioneer in doing those action movies.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Director, yeah, but Bo Derek and all that stuff. So you came back stateside when?
Well, I was doing movies all over the world with these action. After Perils of Gwendolyn, I sort of got on.
You're on the list.
I'm on the list of B-movie action people, So I did it. In the Perils of Gwendolyn, I'm captured in a city of women. Not a bad thing. Then I get hired to do a movie called Stormquest in Buenos Aires, and I'm captured in a city of women. And then, I did, so I worked in South Africa. I worked like all over the world, like Romania and stuff, doing these low budget B movies that would go, straight to Blockbuster. But I had a blast doing them. They weren't very good, but I had a blast doing them. And I really got to travel the entire globe.
Tell me, do you have copies of all of them?
I do, on VHS.
We're going to have a festival.
Oh, I don't know. It was like a buddy of mine was in. They just had the revival of American Ninja 2 at the Beverly Theater in Hollywood, where Quentin Tarantino owns. And a buddy of mine, Michael Dudikoff, was the lead. And at the time I was doing Gwendolyn with Tawny Katane, he was her boyfriend. And another friend of mine, Jeff Celentano's in that movie, and Larry Poindexter's in that movie. And they were telling me, like, you know, all the choreographed fights that we did back in the 80s, they look so dated and stupid now. You can see that they're missed hits and all that kind of stuff. But they were telling me that the audience loved it when they saw American Ninja 2. But those are the kind of movies I did.
And when did you cross over into directing?
Well, I was doing all these films, and they were a blast to do. And then I did a film, and there was a film critic called named Gary Franklin here. So Gary Franklin had the Franklin scale 1 to 10, right? 10 being best, 1 being the worst. So one day, a bunch of buddies of mine, we were all playing basketball in the West Hollywood Park there on San Vicente. And afterwards, we're really close to this bar called Jay Sloan's. And you could get like a Michelob for like 89 cents or whatever. And so we went in there, and it's one of these bars that had like sawdust on the floor. And the TVs are going on. And so Gary Franklin comes on to review The Perils of Gwendolyn. And I'm like, oh no. And I'm with all my friends. And Gary Franklin says, I'm going to give this movie a 1 just because it's in focus. And I go, okay, I need to start making my own content. And that's when it started. So I wrote a play called Actors and Other Animals about a bunch of actors that worked at Joe Allen's in New York. And after, you know, the actors / waiters that worked at Joe Allen's, and they were counting their tips at the end of the night and all explaining why they haven't made it in the film business or on Broadway or whatever. And, you know, it's a play. So from that, I thought, well, I could do a whole movie in one location. So I wrote a script called We the People, and we shot it up in the cabin up in Big Bear. And I'm friends with James Brolin. I got him on board to executive produce and star in it. I played the bad guy. And it was with all my friends who were actors, and we made this little movie for $168,000. And this was when you had to use film. I could probably do it cheaper now on digital. Anyway, we went to the Cannes Film Market, which goes on the same time as the film festival, but it's the market. So it's there's the really good movies, and then there's the straight-to-video movies. And in the first day, I made like $330,000. I like practically doubled my budget. And I thought, so that was my first movie. And so from then on, I thought I was really focusing more on writing and directing than acting. And I ended up making several movies, and I got to hire friends, and I got to fail on my own terms, and I fell on their terms. But that's how that started, and with the writing and directing. Had no ambition at all to ever be a writer or a director, but I did that out of necessity because I wanted to write parts for myself during the
I know that feeling.
Because I didn't want to wait for the phone to ring, you know.
No. I used to watch Tony Perkins sitting in that chair, in that director's chair at his house for days, just waiting, you know, and he never initiated anything. It was, you know.
It's a brutal life if you just wait around. So you can always be doing something in the film business, and most actors don't. They just sit around and wait. I go, that's not going to be me.
So where did Sean Furman appear in this chronology?
Okay, remember I told you Nina Blanchard was the model agent that sounds stupid, discovered me, but you know.
But you were discovered. You were Lana Turner, you know.
Well, yeah. So anyway, Nina calls me up and says I'm going to a big AIDS benefit at the Century City Plaza. Would you like to go? We're getting a group of models together, and I have a table of 10, and I'd like you to come. And I've got some other male models and some female models. And so they picked us up in this big, long stretch limousine, and we went in, and I sat next to Sean Furman, who ended up being my wife. And so my agent, the same agent that got me into the modeling business, set me up with my wife.
Did you ever stop and lift yourself 50 feet above the ground and realize I live in a very rarefied world? I'm not talking actors. I'm talking about these models. I was watching a movie yesterday on I don't know, one of the streaming services. It was called A Life of Her Own. It took place it was made in 1950, and Lana Turner, who was too old even though she was only 30, comes to New York from the Midwest to crash the modeling world. And I think it's the first movie ever about a model. And of course, I did CoverGirl years ago, but it's just even then it was a rarefied world.
It was crazy. Like when you go on these modeling interview auditions, and you would see like 50 girls that were like just unbelievably beautiful, and all these guys that were great looking. It's like it was a weird thing. And I'd have my friends come out from Missouri that I went to high school with, and I'd take them on these interviews with me, and they go, they couldn't believe that. They could not believe that.
Yeah, well, I remember when we were trying to cast CoverGirl because I was a co-producer on that, and going around to these modeling agencies in Toronto, and you're sitting there and they're just coming in, and you're going, "Does this end? Where did they come?" And then we were trying to find an unknown girl. It was this same thing, launching a star, and Jeff Conaway, who I know you worked with once upon a time back there in the Armor, as I recall. Um, he was this billionaire who wants to launch a model, and this one girl came in, and she was fantastic, and she was from Newfoundland, and I called the producer Pierre David and I said, I found her. This is the girl. And he goes, "Oh, Charles, what are you talking? She is a Newfie," which is like the Polacks of Canada.
And he's Canadian as well, right?
Oh, please, and of course, the girl, her name was Shannon Tweed, and she did very well, and married Gene Simmons. Yeah, but also starred in movies for Pierre David 2 years later, but he wouldn't cast, he never even met her. It's crazy. It's a crazy, crazy business. And I guess it hasn't changed much at all.
Yeah, you just never know. That's kind of what keeps us going.
And then you did that terrific documentary, Chasing Beauty, which you were an expert at because of your own involvement.
I pulled the curtain back on the modeling industry, and I did. Some people didn't like the film because they thought I was too easy on the film business or in the modeling industry, and some said that I was the other way. And it's like life. Modeling industry can be great sometimes and horrible sometimes. I mean, when the young girls and most all the models are very young, they get abused. It's really sickening, and I tried to bring light to that. But then it also can be an unbelievable career that doesn't last very long. It's a short shelf life. But like the B movies I did, I would travel all over the world on these modeling shoots. It's crazy. Like these exotic locations with these beautiful. It was unbelievable, especially when I lived in Milan. It was crazy.
Was Chasing Beauty your first documentary?
Yes, and I did that right about the same time as I did another documentary called Behind the Orange Curtain, which pulled back the curtain on opioid abuse with young kids in Orange County, the affluent South Orange County, like Newport Beach and Laguna and those areas.
I think you were ahead of your time with that. It's only gotten worse since you made that.
What had happened, I worked at a performing arts school called the Performers Academy, and one of the owner of the Performers Academy, Natalie Costa, said her daughter's, like one of her friends, OD'd at 15 years old, something like that, at Dana Hills High School, which they named Dana Pills because all these kids were taking these pills. And so they said, will you be interested in doing a documentary? And I was just doing Chasing Beauty, and they said, there's all these parents who lost their kids. Their kids have passed away, but they don't want any other parents to go through this misery. Would I come down and talk to them? So I came down, and there was a whole big room full of these parents, and they were crying and saying, my son or my daughter was a good person, and they lost. And it was just, things can go bad in life. You can lose your job, you can get divorced, you can go bankrupt, all this stuff. But when you lose a child, nothing's worse. That's as bad as it'll ever get. And all that happened to all these people. So it was a heartbreaking documentary, and I went into it saying, I'm going to tell the truth, And if these rich parents were supplying their kids, not, rather giving them stuff rather than giving them love, I would point that out. But it wasn't that way. These were hands-on parents. These were good kids that got addicted to this stuff, and it was killing them. And this was before fentanyl, so I can't imagine what it's like now.
Now, is that a poster for Rockabilly behind you?
Yeah, it is. That's my friend Pat Stack told me about Rockabilly, and I didn't know anything about Rockabilly. And he took me to a Rockabilly event in Ventura, and I see all these
Would you please tell the other people out there in the world who don't know what Rockabilly is?
Rockabilly's like all things 1950s. So we went to this thing and it said all these 1950 cars, and it's a big car. When they have these Rockabilly events, it's usually the car shows, the Rockabilly music like the Blasters and the Stray Cats, and then the pinup girls, and they'd all dress like like pinups. And it's a fascinating subculture. It's a really fun subculture. The music's great, the cool cars, the cool girls, a lot of tattoos. And every year they have a thing called Viva Las Vegas in Vegas. And it's around Easter. I think it's in April every year. And it's just Rockabilly people that are in the culture from all over the world. I mean, you'd have people come from China dressed as Elvis, from Italy, all over the world. They're into this music. South Africa. Amazing. It's if you have a chance to go to a Rockabilly event, please do.
Well, I remember the premiere, all those people who turned up. It was extraordinary. Wow. And so do these, your choice of subjects, like I didn't realize if Pat Stack hadn't told you about this, you wouldn't have made the movie. The other two, how did, for instance, The Orange Curtain, what made you do that?
Natalie Costa, who was the head of the Performers Academy where I worked at, working with young actors, told me her daughter had, so that's how that happened. And then I did a female basketball movie called
Jackie Stiles, which I urge everyone. Now, these are all available on demand if people want to see them?
All available. You can Tubi, Amazon, you can watch them. But the Jackie Stiles story, Jackie Stiles was Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark. It's an amazing story how this young, undersized girl from a small, tiny town, Claflin, Kansas, population 600, said that she was going to be the best female basketball player in the world, and then did it with hard work and grit. And it's an amazing story.
Yeah, it's very inspirational. So you basically gave up features, and then you came back with A Genie's Tale, which I just adore. I think it's wonderful.
Well, it's a kids movie, so they said, be careful, don't work with kids and dogs or animals. I worked with both. Plus, I worked with Jake Paul. Now, Jake Paul is a very polarizing guy, and but he was an absolute gem to work with. He couldn't have been better. He was polite. The kids loved him. He was on time. He knew his lines. He was so professional. And, he's got this image that he gives off. Now he's a terrific boxer. He was telling me he wanted to be a boxer at the time we did this movie. I had no idea he would beat Mike Tyson, for instance. Who knew? And has made a fortune. He's got a great business mind. But it was Jake Paul with all these kids and a talking dog. But I wanted to do it for kids, yeah.
But how were you approached for that one?
A company called Showcase Entertainment, who had they distributed the first movie I did. Remember, I told you I did a movie that we went to the Cannes Film Market, and I made twice the money in a day. They were the distributors. I'd actually directed another movie for them called The Bad Pack, which was sort of the updated Magnificent Seven. So I'd also directed another film for them before, and then they came to me, would I be interested? And would I call Jake Paul and see if I could get him on board? And because if we didn't get Jake Paul, we probably wouldn't have gotten the money to make the film. But
what was your connection to him?
I had no connection.
Oh, you just cold call?
I got the number through Showcase, and they said he's expecting your call, and so here I go. So I'm like telling him, and he's like, okay, yeah, that's cool. He goes, that's dope. I go, yeah, it's pretty dope. And I had no idea his popularity. I knew that, he was a Disney kid from Bizarre Vark. And then we were shooting again at the Santa Monica Promenade. And in between setups, I'm walking down the promenade with Jake. And people were screaming his name. I had no idea he was as big as he was. But it's especially the young kids. They all know him. They all know him.
Serbian scars. I know you had some great stories about that.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I know you know Claudia Christian. Claudia Christian calls me up and she goes, I've got a movie that you might want to direct. And she tells me about it. And at the time, honestly, I could use the work. And so this producer, Vladimir Racic, who is Serbian, but he lives in Chicago, tells me he's got this action thriller that, and Michael Madsen is attached. And would I be interested in directing? And I said, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. So anyway, I got the job, and I go over there, and I mean, things went south in a hurry. Michael Madsen shows up 3 weeks late. They're shooting the movie on film as opposed to digital, but to save money, they're using short ends. So for people who don't know what short ends are, it's leftover films from other productions. So you don't know exactly how much film you have in the magazine.
And the film quality doesn't match.
Oh, this film stock didn't match. I had Kodak, Fuji, and Agfa, all three like film stock, and some of it's really old. But the worst thing is, I had a scene with Michael Madsen where he breaks down in tears. And so it's a slow dolly move coming in. He's playing the piano and he's regretting all the horrible things he's done in his life. And we're getting closer and closer and all this. And I'm right next to the camera because he likes me to be close to the camera like Tarantino does. Because he's been directed by Tarantino a couple of times. And so I hear it. I looked over at my DP, director of photography, and he goes, roll out. And I'm like, we're not going to tell Michael because he will go crazy because this is unbelievable. And so we just kept rolling, and at the end I said cut, knowing the last however many seconds were not filmed. And I go to my DP, so what do you think, do we have it? He goes, it's all good, boss. And I go, moving on. So Madsen never knew.
Wow. So tell me, are there any more mountains to climb for you? What challenges, what do you see ahead?
What I see ahead is I am always, as long as I can remember, I've been very ambitious. I wanted to be a professional basketball player. And that's why I was such a and I lived at the gym. And even when I wasn't getting scholarship offers, I would write all the coaches and I'd come visit. And that's how I ended up going to the University of Missouri, because I wrote Norm Stewart, the head basketball coach. I'd like a tryout, and I come in and he puts me on, team, on the bench or whatever. But I've always been very ambitious. I've always read self-help books or self-improvement books. I still do to this day, just constant. So I thought, I'm going to write my own self-help book. And I'm like, how can my self-help book be different? And my self-help book is called My Playbook for Life, How I See Life. Now, I don't live up to what I want for myself, but it's out there. And sometimes I fail and sometimes I succeed, but I try to make every day better than yesterday. And to use the words of the famous basketball coach John Wooden, I'm trying to make each day a masterpiece. And if I have that in my head. So how can my book be different than the rest of the self-help books? Well, Charles, you're an actor. We're actors. When we become these characters, we sort of embrace the characters. We walk like the character. We have the swagger or shyness or whatever. We become these characters. We dress like the character. So if I decide in life I want to act like somebody who's destined for great things, I'm going to act it. And not just fake it till I make it, but fake it until I become it. And that's sort of the book, what it's about. And so...
Well, you are an exemplar of the title of this podcast, Paid to Dream. You have been paid to dream all through your life, and it's wonderful.
Everything that I've done, I would do for free. And so if you can find a job that you would do for free.
Absolutely. It's been my credo.
Yeah. And so I I can't, like when you got a long weekend, I'm like, I can't wait for the long weekend to be over so I can start working. And I literally enjoy it. You and I, Charles, we know what it's like to be rejected and said no to. But like, let's say this book, My Playbook for Life. It may be a big failure. Maybe nobody reads it. But I know I did it. And I did it the best that I could. So that does something for my self-esteem. And we all can go out and give our best effort. But sometimes it succeeds, but sometimes it doesn't. But dust yourself off and keep coming at it. And keep that enthusiasm. And, yeah.
We've hit our magic time.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Charles, thank you for having me on the podcast. Best of luck with this. And this is yet another chapter in your life.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, folks, enjoy.
Bye-bye.